Back to another episode, the schedule release episode, where we talk everything about and give our takes on the season as a whole and do a game by game breakdown. Before kicking this party off, I want to start by saying Happy Mother's Day to all those mothers out there. Hoping everybody has a great Mother's Day weekend. And that said, cheers, Dave.
What's going on? What do you think about the schedule? How it shapes up, time slots, overall where the bye is, thoughts?
First thought is I can't believe we got one more primetime game than the Jets. There must still be a lot of pull to the Green Bay Packers going back to back Hall of Fame QBs and Jay Love stepping into the fold. And we got 6 primetime games and they only had 5. What gives?
Green Bay is still a huge draw. I look back on it when Rodgers took over for Favre, they had 4 primetime games. So it's still, city of Green Bay, the team, the history. It's still a main, travel point with fans going from other opponents' stadiums. So people know, just like when the Cowboys are on, people are going to watch the Packers. It's interesting, though. It's kind of it's either noon games or night games, no in between.
That was my second takeaway. So the good is that we have a lot of primetime games, 4 out of 6 of them on the road. That's a bit of a downer to it. 5 noon games, you can take that as good or bad. If you truly know what Lambeau is like at noon, I could view that as more of a negative, and we need to look at potentially switching up our pregame routines, maybe the hotel we stay at. They need to start doing smelling salts before the game. Is Matt LaFleur going to play cheerleader a lot more than what he's had to here in the past? Because there's so many noon game starts that we just don't get up for. Our fans haven't had enough time to pregame, and the Packers come out flat way too many times. I think of that Jets and Patriots game from last year.
I'm thinking young team, fresh energy. I think noon will be fine. I like it as a fan just because get the game over with, get the anxiety over with. My day, I could do whatever I want the rest of the day. The Packers are over at 3. The tough one is those 3:15 games. And now with work schedule, noon game is absolutely perfect for me.
I'll take it. All they need to do is just, hey, whatever Keyshawn Nixon's pregame routine is, just follow it and do it from the time that he wakes up to the time that he enters into the stadium. Do whatever he does. Rasul's another one, always a high energy guy. Just follow their lead and you'll be okay. This is a team full of young 20-year-olds. If they have a tough time getting up for noon games, then we have a whole different problem on our hands.
Depends on what they're doing Saturday night, though. Might be tough to get up for noon, physically get up for noon games.
That is true. They're young 20-year-olds. They're wanting to sleep in past 7 a.m. That's my other takeaway. Besides that, is we have an early bye this season. LaFleur didn't like that it came 2 games after the Lions. I think he had a tough time with that again. I mean, come on, LaFleur. It can never be absolutely perfect in the way that you like it, but I'll take the early bye, and we have no long road trips or huge trips where we're flying 3,000 miles to one side of the coast or another, really.
They have the second least miles flown in the NFL this year. And also,
that's a win. That's a W for the schedule.
They don't have more than a 2-game road stretch where, they'll play back-to-back road games and then they would come home. They have a couple of mini buys by playing Thanksgiving and on the original Thursday night. So 2 Thursday games. So they'll get kind of like a 10-day off stretch there. Shapes up real nice. You want to actually break down kind of the game by game here?
Yeah, my only other takeaway was going to be that we're playing against 3 good/elite QBs, and we'll go through that on the game-by-game breakdown. Dave, I'll let you kick us off against the team that Rodgers is still, I think, the owner of.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
He's the landlord of. It's his team.
Did he pass the deed? Did he pass the deed to the place to Love?
Hopefully the ownership does transfer very nicely.
Yeah, right.
In Jay Love's first start as the Packers QB1.
Rodgers just takes off his Bears stock and puts in Love's office, but this will be interesting. It's kind of like the battle of whose fan base got it right with their quarterback, I guess. There's a fan base out there that Fields is our guy for the Bears, and they just got to build a team around him. And there's a fan base for the Bears that say Fields isn't the guy, and they need to move on from him. And same thing with Green Bay. There's a feeling of, hey, after Philly Love's got it, he's going to be our guy. We're going to, mold the team around him. It's a young team, and there's a fan base saying it's the worst pick in NFL history. So it's kind of going to be one of these old school, we're going to run it a lot games. I think the Bears are going to run it a lot and play defense. I think the Packers are going to run it a lot and play defense. This is going to be low scoring, and this is going to be like a 3-point game in my mind. It's going to be like a 17-14 dogfight.
I could see that. I'm really hopeful that it's not like the Bears home opener last year against the 49ers. That was one of the most sloppiest, downpouring rain type games that I have ever seen, which, hey, that could work in our favor. Just run A.J. Dillon up the gut 20 plus times throughout the game. And to that point, Dave, it's the case of who can, and this is a word that people are going to hear over and over, and it's going to be overused, is who can rebuild quicker. The Bears had the worst record last year. They had holes all over their team, just like the Packers, very much in a transition period as we are, and who can get it together in a much quicker fashion. And this is Justin Fields' third year as the starter, so much more playing experience than Jay Love. I'd like to think that we have a lot more pieces to support Jay Love versus Fields. And I can tell you this much, even though I think LaFleur is going to try this play, the Bears will be ready for the Christian Watson end around at Soldier Field week 1.
I see it playing out like the 20 game. Close, and Fields might give it up at the end. Now, we don't have Amos anymore, but I see it kind of going that route. I'm going 17-14 Packers here, chalk up the first win, and keep Bears ownership in our possession.
All right, Dave, you're going with a win. This is our early season prediction. We'll do a couple more in training camp and preseason once we actually see what we have once it hits the grass or the turf. Don't tell David Bakhtiari that we have to play on turf a couple times this year, but you're going win. I'll go win as well. Just because I still think that the Bears have there's a lot of areas on defense that we can attack them. Let Jair match up with their new wide receiver 1 and DJ Moore, and I think we have it in the bag.
I just see if Love has a bad game, or if Fields and Love both have bad games, it's advantage Packers because the Packers just have more around it in terms of offensive line, run game, defense that can kind of keep them in it.
Agreed. Yes.
But who you got? What we got week 2 now?
On tap for week 2, we have another road game. And like you mentioned before, thank God we don't have like these 4-week stretches of road games. We're going from one side of the country to the next. We are playing in Atlanta for the first time since 2017. I looked it up. I'm like, well, what happened in that 2017 game? This is the Rodgers collarbone 2.0 season. And it was in September we played them. Matt Ryan carved us up that year. Julio had a big game. Sanu also had a big game, and Devontae Freeman. We had Kyle Murphy out of Stanford, 6th-round pick, starting at left tackle that game. And Rodgers had pressure all day long. Yeah, we're traveling down to Atlanta, also where Rodgers had the best game of his whole entire career. And we'll see how Jay Love can play in a dome. He did pretty well in that game in 21, the season finale against the Lions at Ford Field. But yeah, week 2, we're facing off against Desmond Ridder from the Falcons. This is also his first year starting. And one thing I made a note of is that we're facing the worst division in football, and we also face the best division in football. We're facing off against the NFC South and the AFC West. And the AFC South, this whole entire division has new quarterbacks at home, and these are the must-win games for us, in my opinion.
It's kind of suits us well because it's a fast track down in Atlanta, and we could just use our speed with Watson and now Reed and those Musgraves. So this is battle of 2 young quarterbacks. It could go kind of either way type deal. So the schedule is nice in terms of on paper of easing us into the year. Young team, an experienced team facing also young, inexperienced teams.
That's the great part of that. As far as for the viewing audience and your casual fan, you might not see the best brand of football and compared to other years, and we always get off to a rough start because we're resting starters during the preseason. I believe that LaFleur will have a different approach, and all these young players need snaps. But it's always like now in today's NFL, those first 4 games are like your NFL preseason.
Yeah.
You're feeling it out. There's going to be a lot of clunkiness on offense, and thank the Lord that we're also facing off against other young QBs who are going to face their woes.
How do you see this one shaking out?
This is another win, Dave. We're off to a 2-0 start. While all eyes are going to be on how Jay Love's doing and Aaron Rodgers. We're off to a 2-0 start, and I think the Jets are off to an 0-2 start.
We're not doing the Jets schedule here, but
we're not. But
I'm with you.
The media is going to be like when Favre went to the Jets. They're going to be comparing it all season long. I at least have to mention that.
I'm going 2-0 as well. And this is kind of when everyone's going to be like, oh man, like, we're cooking here, but eventually the train's going to fall off the tracks. But right now, 2-0, very hopeful going into week 3, where we got Saints coming to us.
I like it. I should be there for that home opener as well. I've been at the last 3 home openers. We've taken home the dub for those past 3. You think this is where we get brought back down to earth and people are putting us in like the NFL rankings of a top 10 team? They're like, oh my gosh, Jay Love is the answer. He's the next Hall of Fame quarterback. And let's not get into overreaction after week 2. But how do you see this one playing out against another team that now has Derek Carr as their starting cornerback? And they still have a lot of pieces on offense and on defense, where this is the most well-rounded team out of those first 3.
Should we do the 7-year-old approach and just do win, where you're, no, yeah.
That's not as fun. We could.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, this is the one where I just don't think the offense keeps up. I think it's one where you're frustrated with the defense, even though the defense is keeping the game tight, if that makes sense. You get what I'm kind of saying here? Where
Alvin Kamara has our number. How many times has he made our defense look silly and we have players flailing all over the field, missing tackles on him?
It's one where the offense isn't quite moving and they're stalling out, and the defense is constantly on the field, and it's like, you guys got to make a stop, and it's those like 3rd and 15s, and they make it. It's going to be one of those frustrating games. That I just kind of sense that.
And Chris Olave is beating us over the top because Barry's playing soft zone with our cornerbacks, and Eric Stokes is getting beat by Michael Thomas on a quick slant route.
Yeah,
I'm with you, Dave.
I could see this being a barn burner of a game where you're in the 3rd quarter and you're like, I'm watching this for educational purposes now. Like, this game was over 2.5 quarters ago.
Do you think it could be they get up to like a 30-14 type lead and then we make it somewhat close at the end?
I don't quite see that. I'm seeing, it's like 28-3, and then it ends up being like, and then I see maybe like a 34-10 game in my mind.
Yeah, I could very well see that. Hey, and you said that a 7-year-old would go through the schedule and say win, 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 win. Hoodie Jones does that like almost every single year. James Jones has 16, 17 and 0, 16 and 1, 15 and 2. Supporting his boy Rodgers. Yeah, this can be the one that you have a really young, inexperienced team. They're getting really high on themselves, and then here's the one where, hey, the NFL will humble you, and as LaFleur will say in his press conference league, that no one's going to hand us anything, and every single week has a different case of challenges that come along with it. All right, I'll follow suit then. We won't have too much of opposition on our hands. I'll also go loss for this game.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we have our first primetime game, the first of 6. Yeah,
and you got the Lions coming to Green Bay, and we all know how that went last year. We had Lions in prime time in Green Bay. So I think it's Lions are a great up and coming team. I see they're no longer like the laughing stock. Campbell's done a great job, and I see that game going how it went last year. It's a little bit of a tight game, and there's plays to be had, and they're not being had, and it's back and forth. And I'll say it's probably going to be anywhere between a 3 and a 7 point game going in favor of the Lions.
And unlike the game before, you said 28-3 lead. This is the one where I could really see the Lions taking it to us. I don't think I've ever said this before. I think the Lions are a top 3 team in the NFC. There's really only one good / elite QB in Matthew Stafford. You could put Jalen Hurts there too if you want him. But I think he's the same quarterback with Justin Fields, but a better team around him. The Lions are the team that now we're going to circle on our calendar. We're not going to be like Lovie Smith and be like, oh, hey, our whole objective this whole entire season is to beat the Detroit Lions. I think the Lions take it to us. The one thing that I am really hopeful for is that we actually can match their physicality. Yeah. They've beaten us up and taken it to us with Dan Campbell and biting our kneecaps and mauling us over and over again. So
this is one where Love's going to be running for his life a lot. Like they just have that front four, that's just going to get after it.
Yep. Aiden Hutchinson, I could see him having a couple sacks this game. Love will make a few mistakes in the secondary. They drafted a young cornerback as well really early in the draft. Mm-hmm. They have Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. Yeah, I have this one as a loss as well. So that puts us at 2-2. Yeah, and one more game before heading into the bye.
Go 2-2, and then we fly out to Vegas. Young team gambling for a win.
And we're facing off against some guy named Davante Adams. I think he played for the Packers for a couple of seasons. He sort of like flamed out there after a while.
Yeah, I heard he was struggling with drops or something for a stretch there.
All fans are really going after his neck when he had a really, really rough go at it those first couple seasons. They're like, we need to ship him off. All kidding. Davante Adams, if he has another couple of great seasons, I could see him winding up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But it will be cool to face off against him. And question for yourself, Dave, is Joe Barry going to let Jair do his thing and go one-on-one against Davante the whole entire game? Or what do you think his approach is going to be against Davante and Hunter Renfrow? And now Jimmy G at quarterback, who last time he faced us, we were in his lap all game long.
We're going to play 12 yards off, and just if Davante wants to run a hitch route every single time, we're just going to give it to him. That's the point. Don't let Davante, get deep on you. We're just going to play the softest coverage you've ever seen in your life. Yeah, no, that's not even a joke. I see that. That's how they play. Barry's going to be like, oh, they have so many weapons, I don't know what to do. So he's going to sit back in this soft zone, and they're just going to pick it up and down the field. I see this as a loss, but yeah, this is going to be just kind of evaluations for everyone. I mean, defense is going to have high expectations. It's going to be like, keep us in this thing. And the young offense is very much going to be, we're watching it to see how these guys grow and progress and what pieces we want to keep. But I think defensively, if they kind of aren't holding their end of the bargain up, it's going to be frustrating. That's the only frustration I'm going to have with this team this year is if the defense doesn't hold, their end of the deal up.
One thing that could give us a spark in this game, correct me if I'm wrong, but Rashawn Gary will likely go on the open up the season on the IR list.
Yeah.
And that's 4 games. So this could be the game that he comes back, or we play it safe with him, rest him for this one, also give him the bye, and then he comes back for the Broncos. But that could be that added boost if you want to rush him back. We know how much of a workout freak he is. I wouldn't even be surprised if he's ready to go week 1 and is like an Adrian Peterson and then just goes off on the league. That's really being eternally optimistic with him. But the Packer way is to play it incredibly safe, and he's one of our key pieces on defense next to Jair and the old man Kenny Clark at 27.
I don't see a reason to rush anyone back with this team. Nothing screams to me like we need urgency and we need to rush injured players back so we can make a run late in the year. They're going to hold Gary out till after the bye, make sure he checks out, give him that extension. This is for the long term for Gary. This isn't going to be about this year.
What happens though if we open up the season 3-1? That could change some things, because the Saints is easily a winnable game. That we're 3-1 heading into Las Vegas, first time playing at the Death Star. Rashawn Gary is going to be calling Dr. McKenzie saying, "Please let me play for whatever you can." But yeah, most likely the Packer way. Let's play it safe and have them come into that Broncos game. Another trip out to the West Coast, not too far though, and playing the Broncos. Here's what's really ironic about this game, Dave. The last time that we played the Broncos in Denver was 2015, also coming out of a bye, and we got absolutely demolished in that game. Von Miller tore us alive, and we lost like 29-3. It was an absolute embarrassment back in 2015 playing against the Broncos.
Yeah, it's hard to just do like wins and losses with this, and because no one knows what Love's going to be, right? Love could be anywhere from like Seneca Wallace to Jeff Garcia to Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Like, so you mentioned like, oh, hey, what happens if we're 3-1? We could easily be 1-16 to 16-1. Like, what happens if Love comes out in the 3 years sitting here and he actually grew and developed, and that Philly game wasn't a fluke? Like, he's going to come out and be just slinging it all over the yard with pinpoint accuracy, sticking his tongue out with MJ. Like, so yeah, I think realistically this Denver game, even though we're off the bye, is going to be tough. It's, the altitude change. Kind of the nice break is it's October, so I think it's going to be not like scorching and not freezing temperatures. Yeah, it's probably a loss. But then you get Minnesota coming to town. So do we get and it's at home, and we get that Jair and Justin Jefferson matchup.
Dave, you're not going to ask me if I'm giving this a W or an L.
I've moved on from that because that stuff's going to be,
I think it's fun to do regardless. We'll do a few of these. My dad did say last night, he's like, you should do a few of them, even have one of them coming out of the bye, because then you know what you truly have in this team.
What do you see?
I would be curious to see where you lie on whether this team is going to face a lot of growing pains with the youth injection, or that Love truly is ready and people inside the facility know what we don't, and that there is a lot of confidence around and we can somehow get 10 we can squeeze 10 wins out of this team. I'm going with the latter, that I don't think the Eagles game was a fluke. I'm going more optimistically speaking. I think there's a realistic shot playing against 8 non-playoff teams that we could make a run for this thing. Okay. I'll go W against the Broncos coming out of the bye. Even though LaFleur's teams have rough starts and coming out of the bye, we're not always absolutely our best selves, i.e. the 49ers game back in 2019, and then that Bucks game in, 2021? Even against the Bears, no, that was 2020. Against the Bears in 21, we got down 2 scores to them, and they had 2 special team return touchdowns. One was a kickoff. The other one was a punt return, I want to say, in 21.
This team gets a lot of rope, right, when they have days off. It just seems like anytime you give these guys more than the typical week off, they come out flat. And that's coaching. That's not players. That's on the coaching staff of you guys can just do whatever you guys want on your break. We're going to take it easy, rest the body. We're not going to work it too hard. And then it's like they're still daydreaming about what they did on their week off when the game's going on.
And that's so you hear LaFleur, and excellent point and take, Dave, because LaFleur talks about it a lot in his pressers that, hey, we need to take an inside look. We're evaluating anything and everything during the offseason. that has to be one of those things I take a look at. And I get it. In years past, you have Mercedes Lewis and these veterans, and David Bakhtiari is now on the Tosher, Chad Clifton plan where he practices maybe one day a week. But this is a really young team where I think LaFleur, don't play the Michael Scott, hey, we need to be a friend to all these players and we can't go hard on them. This is a really young team. Don't be afraid to be a disciplinarian in a militant where coming out of the bye, like you're pushing it hard. Maybe we're using our padded practices up early in the season to get these guys ready to go. Then when we're coming out of the game sleepwalking until halftime, they're like, oh shoot, we're playing an NFL game. But I think that's one thing heading into the season that we need to be, or really need to be mindful of, is how LaFleur is playing players and the starters in the preseason, and what his game plan is heading into these weeks, so we're not coming out laying stinkers and laying eggs. But yeah, then the next one we have the Vikings coming up and coming into town.
I mean, the only matchup anyone cares about is Jair versus Jefferson.
That's rematch.
Just going to be must-watch TV. Like the outcome of this game, to me, actually, that inside battle is going to be the most entertaining thing besides the game. Like, the game could go either way. I just want to see Jair just all up in his face.
Nice part about it is that Zadarius Smith, as of yesterday, was traded to the Cleveland Browns, so we don't have to worry about him wreaking havoc coming up the middle on Jay Love. It's only Daniel Hunter this time around. That's really their pass rush specialist that we need to worry about. But yeah, all eyes will be, and it'll be fun to watch how many times the camera pans to Justin Jefferson and Jair in that matchup all throughout the game.
So Cousins might give you some if we're all up in his lap, and the Vikings offensive line isn't good. So this is a game that if our front can just wreck them a little bit, I actually have hopes for this game. I know it's the Vikings. I know they're, playoff caliber team. They've given us some trouble. But if you get our corners actually locking down Jefferson and Kenny can have his way like he usually does against the Vikings offensive line, or Van Ness, maybe you have Gary back already, I could see this being Cousins throws you 3. It could be like that typical it's not like, what time's the game at? My bad. So it's a noon game. So you're going to get noon Cousins, but if you get some pressure on him, he's going to give you some. And maybe Love's finding out his way now. They figured out, these plays, by this point in the season, these plays aren't working and these plays are working, and they're tailing and molding that offense. I like it. I'm going to go with a win here.
Whoa, let's go, Dave. That's a type of carry in the G Packer support we love. You're going with the W. I'm also thinking about it too. This is 7 games in, and this is right around the time that Christian Watson had the light bulb come on for him. The same can be said for our 2 rookie tight ends. Lucas Van Ness could be turning on the switch as well, and Colby Wooden, Carl Brooks. You have Rashawn back and Preston, and just unleash havoc on Cousins, and we know that he'll give us gifts.
So circle it on your calendar. Keyshawn's returning one to the house in this game.
Another one? He's going back-to-back Vikings games?
Yep. That's my bold prediction on this one.
I'll disagree with you so 7 games in, and this will be my first opposition to you. I'm going loss. I think it's going to come down to the wire, but the experienced team pulls it out. And this is going to be the game that the Vikings circle on their calendar, that they want blood and they want vengeance for one of the worst showings they had last year, for them giving us a run for their money, or them giving us a run for our money, for one of the worst 13-win teams in NFL history. So I'm going L, but we will circle this one, that Cousins, like last year, giving us a few gifts, and Jay Love and the offense is starting to click with all those rookie weapons.
And you got the Rams coming to town. Does anyone know how Stafford truly is?
No, but I did hear that the Rams were not very happy with the schedule release, that they have to come to Lambeau again when the temperatures start dropping, because we've won at least 3 straight against the Rams, and really had their number as of late. And they're in true rebuild mode. yeah, who knows exactly how Matthew Stafford's arm is doing. I know that he also had shoulder injuries and Lions, and those things start to take a toll over time, even with his arm strength. So that'll be one thing to keep an eye on. This is another team. They'll actually admit that they're in rebuild mode. I don't think Sean McVay will shy away that they'll bring in some Jags because their salary cap is strong like ours. I'm going to win for this game, Dave.
McVay's also got one foot out the door. There's been rumblings that he's been leaning towards retirement and stuff like that. So who knows what his mind frame is going to be like if they're having a rough first stretch of the season. I don't know. There's a toss-up. Do I want to go back-to-back wins here? Another back-to-back win thing.
This could be like our Cowboys game last year where we're facing, somewhat of a decent powerhouse of an offense that can put up some points, but we're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together and showing you what the true potential of this team can be in the next couple of years.
I think there's going to be a level of inconsistency with this team where some weeks it's going to really click and they're going to be like, wow, this is what they can do. And sometimes it's going to be just utter chaos and a disaster. I think this is going to be a tight game. I'm going out on this. I'm going against it. I'm going out on this one.
You're right, because some games we're going to get up for, other ones we won't even show up at all. And if you're going win against the Vikings, I could see us coming out flat because we're blowing our load against the Vikings. and the players are, they're in the car wrecks every single week, especially in the trenches, that maybe they're just not bringing the same sort of pizzazz as what they did the week before. But I think that this one, they're truly going to bring it. We're going to see what Jay Love and all his weapons around us can be for years to come.
So Steelers in Pittsburgh is my game of the schedule. I know it's not like the fanciest thing, but I like the old school of it. It reminds me a lot of 2009, where it was Rodgers versus young Big Ben. It has that kind of Pickett Love like battle. Like, what happens if both these guys click in this game and you get like one of those high scoring ones? This is. I love this game. I love everything about it.
That was going to be one of my questions heading into this episode. What's your most looking forward to game? This is the one that you're circling on the calendar that you think this after the season when NFL Network decides to replay games, it's going to be one of those games of the year that they play.
I wouldn't go like as far as like NFL Network would want to play this game, but as far as like a Packer fan or a Pittsburgh fan, I think if you throw it on the DVR and press record and you had it for after the season, you'd want to rewatch this game.
So you could see this one being a high-scoring affair. I could see Jair Alexander getting his first pick six against Kenny Pickett in this game. And fortunately for the Packers in this schedule, playing it to our favor, another young, inexperienced quarterback in Kenny Pickett. But yeah, this is the showing of two of the best fan bases in the whole entire NFL. Let's hope that unlike 2009, we can pull this thing out where Big Ben had that last-second comeback against us. Aaron Rodgers, I think that was a game that continued to haunt him. One of his better performances. J. Mike went off in that game, too. Had one of the best touchdown catches of his whole entire career. Maybe our two-headed monster of tight ends, they really bring it together. And we actually feature some guy named Aaron Jones who in other years we like to maybe give him a touch here and there, but then we go off script after those first 15 plays.
Yeah, how about that? You like look at the stat sheet. Holy crap, Aaron Jones is averaging 14 yards a carry. Then you look, he has 4 carries, and it's like, oh, all right. I'm going win here. I'm going win in my must-watch game on the Packers schedule.
Okay, and then oddly enough, coming to the Chargers game, this is the one that I have circled on my calendar that I think is going to be an absolute joy to watch. I'll go ahead and say
you're on different pages here.
We are. I don't see us winning this game, but I surely see this one being a track meet. That the Chargers and Justin Herbert, who he's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL, I still put him up there with like a Joe Burrow from the Bengals. I think he's that talented. The Chargers, if you watch their games, they put up a ton of points, but they also give up a ton of points on defense, even though they have some absolute dogs on that side of the ball. And Derwin James, watch out for him picking up our tight end and dropping him on its head like he did to Travis Kelce last year. But this is my game to watch. I have us taking L in it, but I think it's going to be one of the funnest games to watch. And I could see like a 40 or like an 80-point altogether type battle.
I think this is one of the Packers get the doors just blown off them. And I think you're going to text me at some point during this game saying, did you see that play? And you say, and I'm telling you, I'm at the grocery store right now.
You already cut it off in the third quarter. We're down 35-3, and then here we are making a game up. Dave, we scored 2 straight touchdowns. I think we have a shot to get back in it. Never write off Aaron Rodgers and never write off Jay Love.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. AFC, not a very common opponent. Packers kind of struggle with that type of stuff. Herbert is the guy. Their offense is going to be clicking. It's going to be another Barry special of I can't let up the big play, so I'm going to let them kill us with 1,000 daggers. And the offense might just be sluggish. And that's just going to be, like I said, it's going to be a death by 1,000 cut type game until the floodgates open up.
Isn't that the great thing about this? Me and you are just both looking into crystal balls here, there's so many mysteries and question marks that's like, hey, this could go either way for this team. There's still a lot of pieces and talent on it, but some games are going to be good. Some games kind of shit.
Yeah.
That's just how the cards fall. And even the last time the Chargers came into town, because I'm like another, unfamiliar opponent, whether we're traveling out west or the AFC West is coming into town. Last time the Chargers came to Lambeau was 2015. Phillip Rivers, he always had our number.
Old man Rivers.
Yeah, he threw for like 500 yards. Demarius Randall had one of the best plays in his whole entire career with that deflection to win the game. And just like that one, I could see Herbert going off for like 500. But I think we're going to match him in firepower.
Okay.
And L, though, nonetheless.
All right, man.
And then we bring on Gobble Gobble Turkey.
Yeah, Turkey Day. In it, I will give the Lions props. I do love their Thanksgiving uniforms with just I think it's their old school where it's kind of all the blue and then just the silver helmet.
I'm with that. I think it's their best one. Barry Sanders looked absolutely sick in it.
I'm going to be optimistic on this one. I think that the Packers and the Lions split the series, and I think they each do it on the road because Rodgers had a shot to win that game, but just wanted to just give it to the Lions. I think if you throw Love in that game last year in Detroit, we win that game.
I'm with you on that.
We've had
what do we punt that game? Like once we were in their
they
were in their territory the whole entire time. 2 red zone interceptions, another one that he threw and the safety picked off. I think Love plays better in that game. Love played really well in that finale in the Lions when we were resting starters in the second half.
We've had some really weird games in Detroit lately. We've had Mason Crosby miss 5 straight kicks. We've had Rodgers throw, a pass to David Bakhtiari last year. Like, I see this being close, but I see Love moving the ball well. The defense, giving it to him, and I think we pull out a win. I'm going, I don't want to do kind of score here, but I see Love pulling it out.
Wow. The last time that we took a trip to Ford Field for Thanksgiving was a time that Matt Flynn was our quarterback. This was collarbone 1.0, and we got absolutely wrecked that game, like a 40-10 type game. Morgan Burnett had a fumble return for a touchdown. It was like one of our only highlights. It was another really bizarre game on Thanksgiving, and I don't think I talked to my family for the rest of the day afterwards. It completely ruined my Turkey Day. You have us squeaking out the win. I have us going 0-2. against the Lions, and Jared Goff's ego saying that, oh, I wish Rodgers was back so I could beat him twice in a row. Do you not remember when you were with the Rams and we beat in the divisional playoff game there, Jared Goff?
I could see Jair in this game having a Woodson game. Do you remember that Woodson game in 2009 in Detroit where he just took over and he was just a man among boys? I could see Jair stepping up, or Douglas for that matter, just going off on defense, and Jared Goff being like, I want to get home to my family and eat Thanksgiving. Here's some Thanksgiving presents.
That was the game that really won Charles. One of the games besides the Cowboys game that year that won Charles Woodson the defensive MVP of the season. I think he had 2 touchdowns against Stafford. He pulled out the Heisman.
Yes.
His trip back to Michigan. You're going W. I'm going L in this one. So a couple games that we're differing on. We will document this. It's timestamped, so it'll be really fun to go back and look at it. Then we have the Super Bowl champs coming to town.
There's a lot of games, right, that you could circle and be like, I really want to watch. You know, it's AFC West, so it's great teams but uncommon opponents, and there's probably a lot to like about this schedule from a fan perspective of so and so is my favorite player, so I can't wait for them to come to town or to watch this game. This is out for me, buddy. Like, it's not.
What, Dave? We're not pulling off the impossible against the Super Bowl champs.
There's a lot of firepower on this team, man. And the thing about high-powered offenses with our defensive coordinator is he doesn't dictate the game. He lets that team dictate it against us. So I see any team that has the chance to go 40 burgers, Barry's going to play 8 yards off, 10 yards off, and just let them do their thing.
Travis Kelce could go off for $150 in this game easily.
MVS, by the way, returning to Lambeau.
Yes. MVS, I think they're going to throw him a few deep balls, one that he hauls in, and then he's going to do an ode to his Packer days and drop another. So MVS giveth, MVS taketh away. Yep. Babe, I have this as being the hardest part of our schedule. Actually, this is like our 3rd out of 4th straight loss I see coming into our hands, a 4-game loss streak. In 2008, when Rodgers took the helm, they had a 5-game skid. So I could see this one as another really difficult part of the schedule. I don't even see this one being close for us. No. Patrick Mahomes having an MVP-type performance. Their coaching staff showing that they're heads and shoulders ahead of ours, and us making silly common mistakes, and Aaron Jones not getting the touches that he needs to. And I see us, like your Chargers game, I see us being out of sorts against the Kansas City Chiefs and having a hangover from Thanksgiving.
I could see this game being okay. You remember part of last year where the Packers started to slide, and all of a sudden you started seeing a lot more purple in the stands, a lot more blue in the stands, and you're like, what's happening here? I could see this being after Thanksgiving. Packers are on a slide. Casey's not that far away. I could see a lot of red and yellow in the stands of, hey, we got to make the holy pilgrimage to Lambeau. Like, let's go. I see this being kind of a low testing of the fan base, if you will.
I can easily see that. In the beginning of like signs where in the last 30 years, you never really saw this, but you can hear on the TV broadcast the opposing fans and saying, go Chiefs or Chiefs Kingdom or whatever their sort of chant is. And you're like, wait, what? Am I not hearing a Go Pack go in the crowd? Are they that strong in numbers here to give them a 60-40 split for the crowd? That is a really good point. I could also see the Chiefs taking over Lambeau. I'll likely be at that game as well, but hey, that's for a whole nother episode as well to speak of. And then we travel to the New York Football Giants to play them for, what was it? The last time we played them was 2020, and there was snow coming down on the ground. Jermon Williams had an interception along with Kevin King, and we won that one late against them. I see this, unfortunately, as another loss. Saquon Barkley and our run game, he's getting us for 5 yards a clip every single time we have a struggle keeping him in check. Also, Daniel Jones
going
off for like a few quarterback type runs and people coming after Joe Barry's head in this game.
So does Goody and LaFleur meet up with like Rodgers? Like the Jets and the Giants share the same stadium, same, do they just shoot him a text like, hey, we'll meet you in your locker room or something? Like, but no, this getting to the actual game itself. Yeah, I think Daniel Jones actually runs all over us on this one. I think this is like the Eagles game of last year. I could see Barkley and Daniel Jones, and it's just like, oh, great. They only threw for 100 yards, but they ran it for 325. I have an L in this one. I think you see some good signs from Love in this one, and it's just a complete breakdown in run defense.
It'll be really cool to see the matchup between David Bakhtiari, if I can pronounce his name correctly, and his newfound dad strength, and A.J. Dillon. If he's playing this late in the season, does his knee act up once again, and how he squares off against their new pass rusher, and what is it, Kayvon Thibodeau?
Yeah,
out of Oregon.
I can see those two, year, but yeah.
Yeah, out of last year, their top 5 pick, or he's going up against whoever our right tackle is, Tom, Elton Jenkins, Nyman. Yeah, I see this being as the final loss in like a 4-game, really tough stretch for the Packers, and an uncommon trip up to New York. I don't see Goody and Mark Murphy and LaFleur getting together with Rodgers. But I do see Bakhtiari and Rodgers hanging out in that trip up there. He's probably going to stay at Rodgers' apartment that's like an hour and a half away from the stadium for some odd reason.
You get the Bucks coming in December, so hopefully get it as cold as possible, get it as snowy as possible.
Yeah, December 17th. Could this be our first snow game at Lambeau? Snow globe game like the Titans a few years back?
Hit that, or the Seahawks in the playoff game with Favre from a while back. God, all these games are it's just tough because you just don't know what team you're going to get.
We're just speculating as much as possible. We're trying to predict the stock market here, Dave.
Brady's gone, so that's
you have Baker Mayfield in at quarterback. This is the division. These are must-win games. If we're getting W's, it's coming against the NFC South.
Baker and do you go? 3-1 in the South is doable. I mean, Bucks, Panthers. You get Bucks, Panthers, and Falcons. Those are. I mean, any game is 50-50 at this point, but those are 3 that you can maybe hang your hat on. I mean, it'd be nice to get wins with those, and then the Saints is just the Saints, but. Baker in December, or Baker at Lambeau, just has Cleveland Browns like performance written all over it, doesn't it?
The game that we played them on Christmas Christmas Day, and Rasul had 2 interceptions, 1 to close out the game, but they kept it close the whole entire time. It was a nail biter. Rodgers was that the game that he hit Allen Lazard to take over Favre for the all-time
it was.
touchdowns in Packers history?
Yep, that was the one.
So you see this one coming down to the wire and with Baker?
Yeah, probably all. Baker, it was the same thing with Baker when he was at the Rams, too. Baker's going to give you some. You got to hold on to it. Hopefully the offense kind of found its footing a little bit. Maybe you do get snow and it's just like hand it off to Jones or hand it off to Dillon. Get the big tight ends involved. We'll go win here.
I'm going W2. Feed Quadzilla as much as possible, and watch out for. The Bucks do still have some players on defense. I think they're leaning heavily on the run game. I'm giving us a dub in this game. I could see this one being like a 24-21 win at Lambeau in December.
Okay.
And then the last of the NFC South opponents heading to Carolina.
Yeah, how about you start first on this one?
So this is the last time we went to Carolina was in 2017. This is Rodgers' return after having his collarbone injury. And we thought that we could run the table in 2017 and return to the playoffs. We ran out of luck. We made a run for it there at the end. Rodgers wasn't his normal self and playing an ungodlike performance. Unlike the game in 2013 and hitting Cobb to win the NFC North, or other ones that we've seen him pull some rabbits out of the hat. The way I saw the win for me, I don't even think he started. I saw a clip of him the other day, but Kyler Murray looks bigger than Bryce Young. I have a tough time seeing his body able to withstand a whole entire NFL season. So I see us winning pretty convincingly against the Panthers and one of the worst teams in the NFL. And this one has to be a gimme, but not always the case.
Yeah, I was going to actually mention that. It's funny looking at schedules now, right? And we used to just be able to put down 11 wins pretty much easily.
And 4 wins against the or 3 wins, or I'm sorry, what is it? How many wins against the NFC North? So 6, yeah, an automatic 6 wins against the North.
You could pretty much chalk up 5 wins against the division.
Yes.
I don't see us. I see this as a loss, to be honest with you. Maybe Bryce Young has some magic. We've had duds in the past where it's kind of games we've expected to win and we lose, and I kind of see this game going this way. I just don't see us going 3-1 in the division, quite honestly. I could see us doing 2-2 in the NFC South. And I think that this is just one where kind of like my trend's always been you dominate the Bucs and you're like, okay, we have it. And then you come back out flat the next week or something's not going right or it's ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm going to go with on this one.
I think this is going to be our second back-to-back wins. And yeah, there's going to be a roller coaster of games in this one. I just somehow see us pulling this one out against the Panthers, and the team's hitting full stride, or at least it has to at this point with only a couple games left in the season. Right. And then we have the Vikings. And this is such in like typical fashion by the schedule makers for them to slate us against our NFC North opponents those last couple games of the year. And you had the game of the season against the Vikings back in week 8 as a W in this one. Do you see us going 2-0 against the Vikings?
I see the Vikings fighting for a spot in the playoffs or fighting for seeding in the playoffs, and they're hungry, and we're kind of not even in the picture. I mean, it's in Minnesota. The damn horn's going to be going off. It's going to be loud. Yeah, it's just it's going to be a game you're just tired of that damn horn. It's like, shut up already.
And Jair gets the best of JJ in the first matchup. I see this one being like week 1 of the 22 season and Justin Jefferson going off for like 200 yards. And we have secondary players pointing at each other saying, hey, I thought that was your guy, and people running wide open for days.
Yeah. It's just, I agree with you. I mean, it's maybe Love this is Love's crap game. Defense isn't holding it together. I'm with you on that week 1 of last year.
It does remind me of when Love's lone start against the Kansas City Chiefs a couple of seasons ago. I was at that game. The crowd noise definitely affected him, and he had a tough time getting off the silent count. Rodgers was one of the best in the history of the NFL with that and facing those loud crowds like he did in Seattle in the NFC Championship game in 2014. Love, I think, with this offensive line, there's going to be some false starts with it, some bad snaps from Myers or Tom or whoever's under center, and some interceptions in this game. And the crowd for the Vikings is getting fully into it. And that stupid horn going off.
I think you're going to see a very animated Matt LaFleur in this game.
Throwing down the play sheet, pacing up and down the sidelines.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those.
David Bakhtiari, one of his final games as a Green Bay Packer, ready to move on to New York or and looking checked out.
That's a real possibility with this team.
And one of Aaron Jones' final games, Preston Smith final game.
I wasn't saying Dave. These guys are professionals and stuff like that, but I see the veterans soaking in the moments when they realize the season's winding down. There's not going to be a playoffs, and just kind of preparing themselves for the offseason of a lot of change for these guys. And then
six wins isn't going to have you jockeying for playoff and wild card positioning heading into week 18 and the Bears at home.
Bears at home. It's the Bears. This is going to be our playoffs. Loud Lambeau. It says right now there's no time slot. It would be, I can't remember the year, but it'd be the first time in a while the Packers and the Bears haven't played prime time. I don't expect either of them to be that good record-wise, so I don't know if they'll put it in the primetime slot. I doubt it. I see Love slinging it around. I see like an absolute beatdown. Can we do the what was that Sunday night? What was the Sunday night game where Jordy went off and it was like 45-3?
In the first half when
Rodgers
had six touchdowns. Yeah. I want to say that was 2014.
14?
It was. We still. Eddie Lacy was in his prime during that time. He had a
pass.
Screen pass for a touchdown. I want to say it was 2014. Few touchdowns to the tight ends. You could see it being one of those.
It's one of those. That's just my gut feeling on it.
I think we're going to end on a really high note. I agree with you. Once again, there's not a lot of conflict or between us two and how we see the schedule. I mean, as a whole, we tend to agree on a lot of things. And maybe we need to have more of a Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp type take. I'm kidding though. This reminds me of, in finishing on a high note, like in 2006 when Mike McCarthy took over the team and we finished 8-8. We had a really nice finish to the season with that and building upon momentum, and that led into 2007 going 13-3. And then even in 2008 when Rodgers took over, you'll have to fact check me on this one, or Hein, I know who's been chatting in. Sorry we haven't been able to keep up with your chats. They're Hein. I want to say in 2008, this is when we faced an 0-15 Detroit Lions team that we sent packing and made them an 0-16 team, winless. Donald Driver had a long touchdown in that game. We finished on a high note, and then that sort of catapulted us into that great 2009 season. So I could see this one being very similar to that. I'm really hopeful that, and I want to say this was sort of like a game that was later on in the season. They always show that sort of graphic heading into halftime. The Packers are up 40-45 to whatever the score is at halftime. And that was one of the games as a Packer fans in our glory days that I took for granted. And we're like kicking back on the couch in the second half with not a worry in the world to even think of.
I could see this very much being a game of, okay, we have our guy for the Packers in love of, okay, the record wasn't quite there, but we saw glimpses, and holy crap, he put it all together this last game, and very much the opposite for the Bears of, oh my God, Fields is atrocious. I could just...
It's time to move on from him. The Bears are most likely going to be around 4 wins, 5 wins, around the same sort of win-loss record as us. And they have the USC guy, the Heisman winner, coming out in the draft. They could potentially be looking at tanking and moving on for Justin Fields. This is his break.
But,
so Dave, that 7 wins for the season, that puts me at 8. Which, heading in and taking a look at the schedule, I was thinking somewhere between 6 to 8 wins for this team, realistically.
Still. Yeah, I went up on my higher side than I thought I was going to do. I'm looking at 5-7. So I ended up going with my high note there.
There we go. Your glass is half full on this Saturday morning. Dave is at Augusta with the birds chirping in the background, and he's feeling really hopeful for for Jordan Love in his first year as a starter, taking over the reins.
Yeah, we're piping in the music here. The But yeah, I mean, all in all, it'll be fun to watch this play out. We are going to do this a couple more times. Maybe what we'll do is we'll put a graphic up after the episode. Maybe we'll do like 3 of these. We'll do kind of like preseason one, and then we'll do one to get like right before the season when they cut down to 53. And maybe we'll put up our graphic of early preseason final 53 predictions and see which ones kind of we came up with here.
You read my mind. So May 13th, 2023, Dave's going 7 wins. I'm going 8. We'll do another one of these sometime in preseason. We actually need to see what this team looks like on the field, and that'll give us a much clearer picture for what's to come, rather than this foggy mess that we're putting the jigsaw puzzle together as we speak. But any closing thoughts about the NFL schedule, or even Jordan Love's press conference and Kenny Clark and Aaron Jones before we let our fan base get on with the rest of their Mother's Day weekend?
So just one thing on the Love thing, and then we can kind of head on out here. But it's nice. It's kind of like a breath of fresh air, just like the birds outside. He was kind of singing a lot of truths there, which was refreshing. It was great to listen to. Someone that came up when they asked him a question, he would answer it as direct as possible. The whole, it really sucked when he signed that contract, stuck with me, because there's a lot of guys that wouldn't let their feelings about that kind of out in the open. So that was telling. It was telling that he wanted the younger group of receivers and playmakers, and he didn't care if Cobb and Lazard stick around, because he wants to mold the guys into how he plays, versus Cobb and Lazard possibly telling him, no, we do it this way around here. Well, it seems like he for sure has a starting quarterback attitude, which makes him more confident in the guy.
Which was like one of the first times that a lot of fans got to see Jordan Love talk, unless you're the diehard who's tuning in to every single player locker room interview. And the 2 things that stood out for me in the J Love presser was number one, which I was really hoping he was going to go this route, is he was pretty internally grateful to have Aaron Rodgers and sitting behind him. I can understand the other part that comes along with it, with the frustration and having to sit for 3 years. But what J Love needs to really realize and consider is that, look at how many quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round that end up fuming out in this league. They're thrown into the fire, and then they're backup QBs like Baker Mayfield, because they weren't giving time to learn the really complexities of playing the hardest position in all of sports. So I'm glad for that. And the second part, which we'll get to see in the next few months, because they like to really post on social media, these younger guys do, is him working out with Romeo Dobbs and building more chemistry with Christian Watson, and Aaron Jones even flew out there. I think that speaks volumes upon his leadership with the Packers, and I can't wait to see how much that he sort of takes this team underneath his wing. He's going to be an all-time type Packer great, whether it's his last one. And what Love really needs to do, because this is going to be his safety blanket and best friend, he needs to fly out the tight end combo of Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. And he might have to do it on his dollar, because as of right now, Tucker Kraft showed a picture on Instagram yesterday of him in his living room and just a lazy boy and a TV sitting on the floor saying, hey, how do we feel about this picture as a man's bachelor pad? I saw nothing wrong with it. I don't know what you think, but I think he has everything he needs in that living room. Not even the TV sitting on a TV stand.
He's gonna be a fan favorite so quickly, Kraft. I mean, dude's hilarious. Getting back to Love, I liked everything he said. It just was nice. It's confident. That stuff with Rodgers, you nailed right on the head. I had a thought here that completely went in and out of my ears. But, Rodgers said he can call him anytime, but we know how that works out. He might have to FaceTime or send carrier pigeons or whatever he does now. But getting on that note, I mean, we're excited for OTAs and for the season to get underway. And that's a wrap for our early predictions here.
And a cheers to another episode, Dave.
Yeah, man. Congrats.
Enjoy your weekend.
You as well, buddy.
Until next time, Packers on the Run.